as far as Gradle is concerned, I thought I might do just a quick comparison of its value add, the value proposition of Gradle. Gradle really, well, let's start with Ant. Ant's been around for a while and it's XML based, and at the time maybe that made sense, but it's a little bit cumbersome to be working in, and it's definitely verbose. If you're just trying to describe a very simple Java project to be built, there's still a lot of work, and oftentimes in the Ant space it's a copy and paste of the previous Ant file that you had, and it's tweaking from there. And a couple of things. One is Ant's great at what it does as far as tasks go and its features and benefits. It's just, it needs more. It's a great place to start now, right? So describing your builds in a newer language, say Groovy as an example, that would just be a better thing to do. So we actually have Ant at the core of Gradle. So we're leveraging everything that Ant provided, but in a Groovy sense with Gradle. So let's talk about Maven for a second. Maven, although it's helped us evolve our industry a little bit from the days of Ant, where project files were very inconsistent and just different across every different organization had its own mechanism, a copy and paste of one project file to another, then tweaking it from there. Maven actually provided some additional disciplines that was useful for many people and many organizations. So one of those areas is around dependency discovery, managing dependencies. The other would be project layout and managing a project. So one of the challenges and frustrations that I recently had working with Maven, because I was working for a client where Maven was their standard, I was forced to move in that direction. But the challenge was this: we had one project file. It's fairly, not one project file. We had one project structure, if you will. It's fairly simple, but we had a need to have two artifacts. Now, there's a couple of ways of managing that, but it would be non-standard for this organization to use profiles and some of the other techniques that would be available within the Maven space. And it forced us, and partially it's the Maven ecosystem. Partially, frankly, this is part of the client's constraints that they had, so to be fair, there are ways of managing this differently within Maven. But in that particular case, we ended up having to break up this project into multiple projects and then have a shared root project for that whole thing, and so you have palms and palms and palms, which is a fairly standard thing to see in the Maven space. So we're adding a lot of complexity, adding a tremendous amount of complexity, and not really gaining a whole lot out of that. And Gradle actually just has a better message around that. For one, we have incremental builds. It's not something you see in the Maven space, something we've been struggling with in a lot of the build automation tools. So incremental builds are huge, especially when it comes to larger and larger enterprise solutions where you have a large number of components that are going to be built up together. Paying the cost of recompilation for each one of those steps is just too expensive. We have clients, Gradleware that is, we have clients that have builds that take 5 hours. Well, that's just too long to submit something and be able to get feedback on. When we're looking at increasing our velocity, if you will, the velocity of your team, your ability to respond, the ability to know that I made a change and I want to know how that affected the larger picture. I need that feedback as soon as possible. So anything that helps reduce that 5 hours down to 2 to 3 to 1, down to less than an hour, that's going to be huge, and that's where we're going with Gradle. The focus is on incremental builds, on empowering people to have that full control that you would normally have in Ant. You've lost some of that with Maven, and so providing that convention over configuration that Maven has, providing the sensible defaults that Maven has, providing the power and control that Ant has, and wrapping that all together in one product that has Groovy on top of it as a DSL and is more concise than you would get with an XML product. So we really think that it's something worth looking at. It's going to add a lot of value to the industry. So on top of that, I mean, where we see the industry going is looking at continuous delivery. And so it's really continuous delivery. When you look at it relative to project automation is a subset of that. It's really about growing out these skills, these techniques out to a larger piece where the delivery actually hits production. within a disciplined engineering approach, which is then codified within your build automation toolset, which we think is Gradle. So when we take a look at where the industry is going, you see within the Ruby space some really interesting and powerful tools like Chef and then Puppet, variety of tools that are helping organizations kind of build templates of how certain builds of solutions should go out to their servers. There's nothing like that really in the Java space. Now you can certainly customize those tool sets to work within the Java space, and people are doing that. But we'd like to see that being managed in a way that's kind of native, if you will, to the Java space and the Java ecosystem. And that's where we see Gradle heading. So once again, a little bit of discussion about what Gradle is, the value add that it might bring to your organization. One of the things that we need to talk about within the Gradle space is the fact that we actually can fork off a number of different tests, and then those can be managed and then brought back together. One of the focuses that we have as Gradleware is to come out with build farms, where we can actually continue to decrease the amount of time of that feedback loop by having concurrent builds of multiple projects in a large project environment, an enterprise project environment, and then bringing that all together as a full solution. Now that's a glimpse into the future, but certainly on our roadmap. So I just want to invite you to take a look at Gradleware and what we might be able to do to help you out. Take a look at Gradle and see how it can actually help provide some benefits to your organization.